that's one of the things that you find some of the division between this struggle, because the mine is very close, and they say that the chief is marginalizing them because the people of the village want to secede. So the chiefs of Mutlab, the young people in Mutlab cannot be employed in the mine because the chief said they must not be employed because they are revolting against him. So that's one of the issues. But they think that the group that is pursuing the chieftains are not very concerned about the bread and butter issue. Now, one of the villages we have looked at very closely is the village of Sefigile. Sefigile hosts one of the oldest mines in South Africa, I would say. Started in the oldest platinum mines, I must say, in South Africa. Started in the late 1940s, and it became one of the biggest. It's called, that is the mine called the Union Mine, or Anglo-Platinum's Union Mine. It was under Jason. I'm not going to go into the detail of about this history. But what is interesting about Sefigile, land buyers in Sefigile came from different groups. They dispute the Bakgatla ethnic identity. They came from different groups and they assembled around that hill, if you look there. And they collected, they bought the farm through their cows and many other goats or whatever. And they claimed that they were integrated through colonial policies by force. I mean, the colonial policies that we know about, by force into the Bakgatla chieftains. And that is why there's so much resistance against the Union Mine, because they believe that they do not benefit from the Union Mine. And as some of us may know, the Bakgatla Tribal Authority has been receiving revenues from the Union Mine from the early 1980s. And those revenues in 2006 were changed into 50%, converted to 50% stake into the mine. But the village has received nothing still. Now, because this mine is predominantly shaft mine, and they've got a couple of shafts, about 4 shafts in the mine, and it attracts a lot of migrants from all over South Africa, particularly in Southern Africa, particularly the Xhosa speakers from the Eastern Cape. So the ethnic tensions there have been there since apartheid at times, particularly during the time of Mangope, where non-Tswana speakers were regarded as foreigners, and they didn't have Tswana passports. But I mean, the ethnic tensions are taking another form now, because most mine workers live outside the mine. They build shacks on the land that is, that used to be grazing lands and farming land of the community. So that's why now there's tensions over the small scraps of remaining land that is there. So the village is surrounded by massive informal settlements from all sides. Now, right, I would draw a few conclusions from this. The first one is that group land acquisition in the three villages are remarkably similar, as we have seen. But I think I may have highlighted the differences, but we can go into details in those differences when we discuss it later on. But buyers were discrete syndicates with considerable degree of political economy from the Bakgatla chieftains. And that is why struggles over land and mining benefits are also struggles over ethnic identity and community on the platinum belt. Now here's the thing. I argue that the bifurcated state that Mnwana saw is still intact. One, the fact that the tribal authority is still the main institution which is being used for indirect control and for crushing resistance at rural level, at local level. And custom functions the same way as it did during apartheid. It defends power. It does not give people rights. But there are a few issues I want to also to highlight. Is that now what is different is that the government is black. Have you noticed? But it's still consolidated the same regime. And secondly, that another issue, the issue of mining revenues, which has come into play. Now, which increases the power of the chief immensely. And thirdly, is that the issue of mining capital. Very little, if I'm aware, I don't think I'm aware of any instance where mining capital entry to rural land has been so easy. They have found the rightful entry. The institutionalized power in the form of a tribal authority gives mining industry tremendous advantage over rural people's lands. To enter the land, ravage the land, most of the land in the Bakgatla area is fenced off. I was speaking to villagers who cried tears looking at the land called Motimomane, the farm that I've mentioned earlier on. Actually, that farm to the elderly women, not to the young folks like me who are active in the group, to the elderly women, is their home. When I asked one woman, I said, no, Motimamaro is my home. I don't care about mining, about the revenues, but Motimamaro is my home. Now, what do you mean? He said, I grew up there. How can you grow in the plowing field? He said, look there. They took me in the other day. You sit inside there. We went through as a team, and we saw the old mud structures that these people used to live. The old farming plants. Said we used to play along this river, which is also called Motimamaro or Vergesplay. This is my home. I'm attached to this land. So there's more attachment to land, among rural people than simply than simply monetary exchange or revenues coming to the village. Because the people who have used the land before, they've got far more attachment. But unfortunately, this land is diminishing at a scale you can never imagine. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Sonwabile. And what did I say? Check your socks.
They are still intact.
So, thanks for a really brilliant presentation and really deep insights into what's happening in parts of this country that we don't know about, we never hear about, that people don't have a voice and are not visible. And I think the importance of this research and Sonwabile's presentation is that this is becoming visible for people to see in nothing less than Business Day yesterday and on Twitter right now, to those of you who tweet. Just before going into question and discussion, I want to remind everybody, I think you were all given a copy of this questionnaire. Won't you please fill it in for us before you go? It's just quite important for us to get feedback on the different venues and different times so that we can make the best decisions about how to proceed with the breakfast. Okay, so let's go over to questions and comments. Hand over here.
Thanks a lot, Sonwabile, for such exciting presentation. As a government official, I have observed, though technically you indicated that you are not a politician, but you are. The fact of the matter is that your research and your presentation at the very same time touches on several issues. You'll correct me outside if it is possible. It touches on the issue of the 1913 Land Act. It touches on migration, inside and outside migration. It touches on socio-economic issues, the fight over minerals. It touches also on inequality, including poverty, the major challenges of this particular country. It's so much unfortunate that the Platinum Belt is the only one that has been identified. The Eastern Cape remains the same. The chiefs there are still in control of land. And if you need a piece of land, you have to slaughter a goat or a sheep and have some few bottles to purchase that particular piece of land. But I just needed to make such comments to say all of the 9 provinces in South Africa are affected by the issues that are happening in the Platinum Belt. If there are no mines, there is gain, and that particular gain belongs to a certain chief.
Thank you. Can I, just before going on to other questions, I just want us to welcome the people from the Bakgatla-ba-Kgafela traditional planting. So can I welcome you, our friends from the Bakgatla-ba-Kgafela area. It's really wonderful to have you with us. Please make yourselves at home. It's a great honor for us and for this university to have you here today. And I know that you had to get up very early this morning, about 3 in the morning as I understand it, in order to gather from all the villages and to come through to us. And it's very good to have you with us. In fact, can we have another round of welcome? So, Sonwabile has given his talk, and we're now just starting with comments and questions from the floor. And feel free to participate in any way that you want. Okay, and
thanks for the presentation. My question is, what can we do to make the chiefs and the companies who are mining to account? And also social contribution, because if there is mining in the rural area, the company must make sure there is street, there is school.
can I ask you to give your name and maybe where you come from? Which traditional authority?
I'm not coming
right now. Where you come from, just so that we can all know who's speaking.
My name is Brian. I work as an independent researcher and I'm also an entrepreneur.
Okay, there was another hand. Yeah.
I'm not sure if my question will be...
Sorry, your name?
Okay, my name is Diramatechana. I'm just consulting for Concord. I heard you say you're not a politician. I think I agree with the other speakers that you are. But anyway, my question is based more on your last bullet there. And it's a bit more broad, but with the leave of the chairperson of SWOP, I have to ask this question. It might not be related to Bakgatla-ba-Kgafela situation, but it's a question which I think the society has got a concern in it. That why some other kids are getting allocations from the government and some others are not. And then I'll be very specific with this, especially kids like King's Zonetin, who's getting huge allocation. I might not be updated with some other issues, but I know he's getting huge allocation of millions of rands from governments, and some other kids are not getting that. I mean, that's a concern to the public. And then if that was done based on circumstantial situation, obviously there were less considerations given to some other circumstances. And then if that is the case, when is the situation going to be rectified? Because it's a very serious concern. And then obviously, with your last bullet, that's exactly why I'm saying you work with government. So that kind of an answer would definitely come from government, from some other politicians, or maybe some other people within the house might have a relevant answer, if you cannot answer it.
Jane?
I'm Jane Barrett from SATU. Sonwabile, thank you very much, and I'm sure we all look forward to reading the whole report, because you kept saying, I haven't got time to go into that one, I haven't got time to go into that one. There seem to be so many fascinating avenues that you explore. So I've got three issues I want to ask you about. The first is, what were your observations through this research about what's happening with mine licensing and the apparent sort of loosening of regulations around licensing, and in particular its impact on land usage and long-term food security? You know, you gave a very clear description of the increasing squeeze. But you know, what is it actually meaning for people who may have previously produced their own food? So that question, and then the second one is your observations of you talked of in the one village of large numbers of migrant workers from Eastern Cape. Maybe if you could just talk a little bit more about your observations of, and whether you interviewed people who are working in the mines, both also migrants and other local people, and whether there's any discussion locally in whatever unions exist in those mines around these issues. And then, oh, sorry, the third one was, this area, if I remember correctly, was quite a hot area for resistance to forced removals in the 80s. And, were there groups of people that you came in contact with? Was there continuity in the land struggles between some of the resistance in the 80s and what's happening now?
Okay, right. I think I've noted some other hands, but you'll have to all fight again in the second round to get into my consciousness. I don't have enough lines left to note you, but Sonwabile will respond to the first round of questions now.
Right. I will start. Thanks, Mr. Makachana. I think the important points we have made there. I think you are making a comment. Brian, also I should say that if two people say I could be a politician, I should have a list of people who can join my party when you leave. Taking a new career altogether. Okay, right. Anyway, what can we do to make to make the chiefs accountable? That is a question which is important but broad. And it cannot be sufficiently addressed within this presentation. But what I can say is that we have to follow power. We have to destroy the institutionalization of power at local level. Because it is the main thing. The same, I think, I don't want to simplify it, but it is there. I think this study is pointing to that problem. Power is institutionalized within an authority, within a tribal authority, and custom is solidified or rigid as official, and the definers of custom are chief. So it's no longer the set of rules that is agreed upon, and that can change over time with the change in circumstances. But it is now the chief who can decide, and based on a custom that is his own version and what could be done. I think that's the institution that needs to be dismantled. Right, and why some other kings are getting allocation? Really, this is a government question.
So the private property companies, you have answered the one part. I'm also interested in how they could account.
How can we know companies?
Because it's not only chiefs.
Okay, there is legislation which is being badly implemented at the moment. And mines can get away with setting up a piggery for 5 women and saying we are doing projects, and the community, these are CSI projects. This is what we've seen increasingly, And for instance, I was working with one of the elders in one of the villages of Bakgatla called Klaarhoek. There's a small mine there, in Bakgatla mine. And I asked, what is that? And there's a small fenced area where they were dying crops in there, and then people said, no, it's a project sponsored by the mine. But I could not find any crops. I could just see the fence around it. And the size of it was very small, and the villagers were disinterested in it. So, the legislation is not being enforced, and the mines get away with it. Dina, why are some kings getting allocations and others not getting allocations? My fundamental argument in that is that a king or a chief is a chief by his people. Ingosi ngabantu.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you have people that follow you, then people will look after your needs if you are a leader. Why should you be allocated why should you get allocation from our budget? I think maybe government will answer that. The pre-colonial chiefs. No.
I know this is not part of it, but I think let's not do not make this complex. A chief is a chief by his people. It's okay. I understand that connotation. But here we are talking of allocations that are this budget is the taxpayers' money, which we are talking about, which are being allocated to some other kings, and then they are not allocated to some other kings. I cannot mention the name of this king in Eastern Cape, who has been complaining just recently saying the president is a racist or maybe some sort of that. Why is he giving money to? But here we are talking of revenues which are taxpayers' money allocated to kings of the region, and some other kings are not getting. It's not about the people. The people is taxpayers' money.
But I'll answer this both as an African and as a researcher. One fundamental thing, pre-colonial chiefs, they had land, I mean, people had land as far as they could see, as far as their eyes could see. So if they were dissatisfied with the chief, they left. There was plenty of land. Then chiefs did not have control over land. So what happened after colonial conquest? After all African land was taken, chiefs were allocated this land by colonial state, and they became local despots. And the colonial state began paying chiefs. Chiefs were not paid from above. So if chiefs are accountable to people, it is the people who must pay tribute to their chiefs, not the taxpayers' money. Yes. And that is right.